Somewhere along the way, people stopped talking to understand each other and started talking to destroy each other. Every day now, someone is being exposed, mocked, humiliated, dragged, turned into content. And millions watch, millions react, millions judge. Sometimes without context, sometimes without facts, sometimes without mercy. Outrage has become a form of entertainment, a performance, competition, or business. The louder the anger, the more tension it gets. The more extreme the reaction, the faster it spreads. And slowly, something dangerous started happening to society. People stopped seeing human beings behind mistakes, behind opinions, behind headlines, behind clips, behind screenshots. Everything became instant judgment, instant hatred, instant division, and the internet rewards it because outrage keeps people watching, keeps people clicking, keeps people emotional, keeps people addicted. But what happens to a society when empathy becomes weakness and cruelty becomes entertainment? What happens when humiliation becomes normal? What happens when people become so emotionally overstimulated that they stop caring about each other entirely? This is the human backbone. The internet changed human behavior. The internet did more than change technology. It changed human behavior. It changed attention, communication, identity, validation, conflict. And one of the biggest changes was this. People stopped needing to understand something before reacting to it. Now everything happens instantly. A clip appears. A headline spreads. A post goes viral. And within minutes, millions of people already have opinions. Already pick sides. Already angry. Already attacking. Already convinced they know the full story. But human beings were never built to process this much emotional stimulation every single day. Every scroll now carries conflict, politics, fear, violence, arguments, public shame, disaster, anger, comparison. And the brain never fully rests from it. People wake up and immediately absorb outrage before even leaving bed, day after day, year after year. That changes people emotionally. It shortens patience, weakens attention, increases anxiety, and most dangerously, it slowly reduces empathy. Because when people see suffering constantly, they eventually become numb to it. Not because they're evil, because the brain gets overwhelmed. And once people become emotionally numb, they stop reacting to pain with compassion. They react with entertainment. That's when society becomes dangerous. Public humiliation became normal. There was a time when humiliation was local. Now humiliation is global. One mistake, one clip, one bad moment. And millions of strangers can suddenly attack someone they've never met. People become trends overnight, memes overnight, targets overnight. And what's disturbing is how normal this has become. People laugh at breakdowns, record strangers instead of helping them, turn vulnerable moments into content, celebrate people getting destroyed publicly. And often nobody stops to ask, what happens to a human mind under that kind of pressure? Because behind every viral controversy there is still a real person. A nervous system, a family, a history, a life. But social media removes emotional distance. People become usernames instead of human beings. And once that happens, compassion becomes easier to ignore. This is why online cruelty spreads so fast, because crowds reduce accountability. People say things online they would never say face to face. They attack people they've never spoken to. Judges live. They don't fully understand. And the scary part is that many people participate simply because everyone else is doing it. Because outrage creates belonging. People feel part of a group, part of a movement, part of the attack. And for a moment, that feels powerful. But power without empathy becomes dangerous quickly. Because eventually society forgets how to forgive, forgets how to understand context, forgets how to separate mistakes from identity, forgetting that human beings are imperfect by nature. Anger gets more attention than kindness. Kindness rarely goes viral. Patience rarely trends. Understanding rarely dominates headlines. But anger? Anger spreads instantly. Because anger is an emotional stimulation, and modern platforms are built around stimulation. The algorithm rewards intensity, shock, conflict, fear, division, extreme opinions. Why? Because emotional reactions keep people engaged longer, and engagement makes money. So slowly people adapted to the system. Conversations became more aggressive, opinions became more extreme, nuance disappeared. Because moderate voices don't get attention the same way outrage does. People learned that being loud gets noticed, being cruel gets shared, being angry gets views, and over time, society started confusing visibility with truth. The loudest voice in the room became the most powerful voice, even if it lacked wisdom, even if it lacked compassion, even if it lacked humanity. This affects people psychologically, because constant exposure to anger changes the emotional baseline. People become more reactive, more defensive, more suspicious, more emotionally exhausted, and eventually, many stop believing healthy conversation is even possible anymore. That's dangerous, because once people lose faith in understanding each other, division becomes permanent. People are addicted to dopamine, not connection. Modern platforms are designed around dopamine. Quick stimulation, fast reward, constant novelty, scroll, refresh, scroll again, and constant novelty, scrolly refresh, scroll again. Every notification becomes a small emotional hit. Every reaction becomes validation. Every view becomes temporary satisfaction. And the brain adapts to that cycle. The problem is that dopamine is not fulfillment. Excitement is not peace. Attention is not love. And stimulation is not connection. But many people unknowingly replace real emotional needs with digital stimulation. Instead of processing emotions, they scroll. Instead of resting, they consume. Instead of connecting deeply, they distract themselves endlessly. That creates emotional emptiness, because the brain gets overloaded while the heart stays undernourished. This is why many people feel exhausted after hours online. Not because they physically worked hard, because emotionally their nervous system never stopped processing stimulation. Human beings need silence sometimes. Stillness, real conversation, nature, reflection, presence. But modern life rarely allows emotional stillness anymore. People are constantly consuming noise. And eventually the noise becomes so constant that they lose connection with themselves entirely. Empathy is disappearing. One of the scariest things happening today is not disagreement. Disagreement is normal. The scary thing is dehumanization, the inability to see humanity in people we dislike. People increasingly reduce others into categories, political labels, social labels, online identities, enemies, instead of full human beings. And once someone becomes a category instead of a person, empathy becomes harder. People stop asking, what happened to them? What pain shapes them? What fear drives them? What life experiences influence them? Instead, everything becomes attack and defense. Us versus them. Win versus lose. Destroy versus survive. But human beings are more complicated than that. Most people are carrying pain we never see. Most people are shaped by experiences they never lived. Most people are trying to survive emotionally in a confusing world. That doesn't excuse harmful behavior. But understanding humanity and agreeing with behavior are not the same thing. A mature society understands that. An immature society only understands punishment. And right now, many people are forgetting the difference. Why people feel constantly exhausted. People are emotionally overloaded. That's the truth. Constant information, constant outrage, constant stimulation, constant comparison, constant fear, constant noise. The nervous system was never designed for this level of non-stop emotional input. So people become drained, anxious, disconnected, irritable, hopeless. Not because they're weak, because they're overwhelmed. There are people who haven't truly rested mentally in years. Even when alone, their mind keeps scrolling, thinking, absorbing, reacting. People no longer just experience life. They consume life endlessly through screens. And because of that, many forgot how to simply exist peacefully. No notifications, no outrage, no performance, no endless stimulation, just silence. But silence feels uncomfortable now, because silence forces people to hear thoughts they've been distracting themselves from. And many people are terrified of stillness, terrified of being alone with their own mind. So they keep consuming, keep strouting, Keep distracting until emotional burnout becomes normal. How do we stay human? So how do we stay human in a world addicted to outrage? Maybe it starts with slowing down before reacting, before attacking, before judging. Maybe it starts with remembering there's a real person behind every screen, a real nervous system, a real life, a real struggle. Maybe it starts with learning how to disagree without hatred, how to debate without cruelty, how to protect truth without losing compassion. Because empathy is not weakness. Empathy is emotional intelligence. It's the ability to recognize humanity even when emotions are high, and society desperately needs that right now. Not blind agreement, not fake positivity. Humanity, patience, wisdom. People are willing to think deeper than headlines. People are willing to listen before attacking. People are willing to remain compassionate in environments designed to reward cruelty. That takes strength now, real strength. Because modern culture rewards reaction, but maturity requires restraint. And maybe the strongest thing someone can do today is refuse to become emotionally numb, refuse to enjoy cruelty, refuse to turn human suffering into entertainment, refuse to forget that behind every opinion, every argument, every controversy, there is still a human being. The world is changing fast. Technology is changing fast. Culture is changing fast. But human beings still need the same things they always needed: understanding, connection, meaning, belonging, love, compassion. And if society loses those things, it doesn't matter how advanced technology becomes. People will still feel empty, still feel disconnected, still feel emotionally lost. Maybe that's why so many people today feel exhausted deep inside. Not because humans were meant to live this way, not because humans were built for non-stop outrage and endless stimulation, but because deep down, people still want something real, something human, a conversation without performance, a friendship without competition, a world where kindness is not weakness, a world where disagreement does not become hatred, a world where empathy still matters. And maybe that world begins with ordinary people deciding not to lose their humanity, not to become cold just because the world became colder. Do not stop caring just because caring has become harder. Because once empathy disappears completely, society loses something far more important than comfort. It loses its soul. This is the human backbone. Next episode, we're talking about why modern life feels emotionally empty even when people are constantly busy, the culture of distraction, and the fear of being alone with ourselves.